Hey, what's up? How's it going? It's Rob and welcome to Leave Curious. So, the UK's largest population of wild boar can be found within the Forest of Dean. Over the past decade, their population has increased tenfold, with a recent census estimating around 1,200 individuals. And it's not as if the boar have been left to their own devices. Every year they've been culled through shooting. An incredibly controversial animal that some say are damaging to our manicured environments and that are a threat to society, while others say that they are the gardeners of the forest, serving a key role within the ecosystem and that they have every right to be here. Whatever side you fall upon, record culls have been reported in previous years, and I'm curious as to why this happens and whether if there's a better way. The current boar populations in the UK are either from escapee boars or those that were released illegally to the wild. No one knows exactly, but I like to think that they escaped themselves. And earlier this year I went to the Forest of Dean hoping to see and understand the impacts the boar has upon the environment. I stuck to the wooded areas and pathways, but the evidence of the boar is absolutely clear. Look at these wads of earth, like imagine lifting that up with your nose. And that evidence is their rooting of the earth, the turning over of the soils in search of food. Being omnivores, they eat a huge variety of different foods, and it's this feeding habit that receives a mixed response from people. So, what are some of the benefits? Several studies have found that the amount of plant species actually increases where boar are present. This can be due to the clearing of a dominant plant species to allow others to grow, but also they eat such a variety of plants, the seeds of which are then dispersed in their dung. When comparing rooted and non-rooted areas, the studies found that nutrient cycling was increased in the rooted areas, which enabled the shoots of tree species like beech to grow faster than in the non-rooted areas. This disturbance from herbivores is such a key part of creating a structurally diverse and biodiverse ecosystem. It is important to bear in mind that just like any other herbivore, overgrazing or heavy disturbance can decrease plant species abundance as well as plant species richness. But on the other hand, when this rooting takes place in built up areas, lawns, cricket pitches, churches and even farmers' crops can be turned over within an hour or two. Another very prevalent negative interaction between people and boar, or should I say dogs, is when dogs are able to chase the boar and make them feel threatened, which can result in the boar attacking, especially if they have young, and boar are also involved in a number of road collisions every year. Wild boar reproduce at a pretty fast rate. Mature females can have anywhere between 3 to 12 piglets at a time. Those who want to see the boar gone emphasise the number of litters that boar can have within a year. Although this may be possible with a gestation period that can be as short as 115 days, this heavily relies upon habitat suitability, abundance of food and threat from predators. When you consider those points, it actually does seem very likely that the boar will be having multiple litters within the Forest of Dean. So these are the negatives, and this warrants the culling of hundreds of boar every year through shooting. Now, whether if you think this is right or wrong, this is what happens. I personally feel that the current management of boars in the UK is harsh, and it's the easiest thing to do. I think it reflects upon human nature to want the best results as fast as possible. I think that there's a few things which we should consider more that ensures a more holistic approach to managing not just the boar, but also the landscape. So, besides shooting, there are a few other ways that we can control the boar. One way is through contraceptives. Around 15 years ago, some feeders were set up to give the boar corn with contraceptives in. I couldn't find anything more on this experiment. I think one of the feeders fell over and it was just deemed a not so good idea. The main problem with delivering contraceptives in this way is that you have no idea of which boar are getting it in their system. But a sure way of knowing who's getting it and when is by darting the boar. Perhaps you'd have to sedate them first and actually inject it, but you could potentially mark the animal this way too. Experiments in contraceptives are being carried out, but it's very much just that, it seems. It's certainly not being used widespread to control the boar in the Forest of Dean just yet. Now, this is my favourite way of controlling the boar populations and all other large herbivores such as deer, which the UK currently has a huge problem with, and that is through natural predators. Through the ecology of fear, predators such as the lynx or a wolf will keep the boar on the move, making them less likely to find each other and mate, and of course, some will be hunted for food. It's unlikely that the UK will release natural wild predators into places such as the Forest of Dean anytime soon. I mean, all you have to do is just look at how we act around the boar and how they're treated, and then just imagine what that would be like for a lynx or a wolf. I am seriously optimistic that we'll find ways to reintroduce predators to the UK, but we have quite a way to go until that happens in the south of England. So I want you now to consider something. Should we manage the boar at all? Should we manage nature at all? This is an interesting concept. It's truly passive rewilding. Why should we manage anything? Should we just let nature be in its entirety? This is hypothetical, of course, and as romantic as this idea is, I just can't see it working large scale because humans, we love to micromanage things. We love an outcome that we plan for, and we do literally anything to ensure we get what we want. So with all of this in mind, I'll ask the question, should the UK be shooting its wild boar? Well, at the minute, it's a yes and a no. It would be an unrealistic plea to say stop shooting the boar altogether, because that is all that is currently happening. And boar do reproduce relatively quickly, and without some form of control, the positive environmental effects that we see would actually slowly turn to negatives. As suitable habitat runs out, areas would essentially just turn to mud and the boar wouldn't really have anywhere to live. It will be a little bit like what's happening with the harsh overgrazing from deer. So shooting should continue while we do the following things. Firstly, we need to educate. Everyone needs to know that boar attack when they feel threatened. People need to therefore know what threatens a boar. How do we educate? We make videos and put them online, we get people into schools, we deliver a flyer through the letterboxes titled How to Coexist with Wild Boar. If the boar are damaging certain areas, why don't we just build barriers around those areas too? This would be easier for private homeowners than it would be for, say, public spaces such as parks or roadside verges. But I have to say, why can't the boar turn over the grass verges of the roadside? And when they're done turning it over, it would be a good idea to go and sow some wildflowers. And within our very tightly mown parks, why not create areas within them that are boar friendly, with plants they enjoy eating, it'll keep them off the grass and where we want them. With respect to contraceptives, I think it needs to be ramped up fast. I'm not 100% sure how close we are to using this widespread, but this should take precedence over shooting. It may be costly to set up and get right, but once it's done, I don't know how often you'd have to administer the shot, but it's certainly not going to be as taxing and as awful as shooting near on 1,000 boar every year. Now, as for natural predators, we need to again educate. The lynx would be perfect, a secretive animal that you'll never see, that's never killed a person, but are we going to see wild lynx released anytime soon? No way. Scotland is where we'll see it first, and that project I'm sure will act as a catalyst to getting the lynx widespread within our forests here in the UK. Is there scope for a large enclosure within the Forest of Dean? I don't know, maybe there is. We could do a project to show the impacts of the lynx on the boar and people too. Ideally, I'd like to see a combination of contraceptives and natural predators to regulate the boar, keeping shooting as the final action and not the first thing that we jump to. Really, when it comes to managing the land, we have to think sustainably and holistically. And empathy and understanding is a key part in ensuring that we do that job right. Thinking outside the sphere of our own wants and needs. That's how humanity has got itself in the problem that it has. We want something and we do whatever is quickest and most satisfying to get there, and all too often it costs the environment. I've linked loads of useful information on the boar in the description, but please tell me your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Leave curious.